This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
Yeah, greetings everybody. Wow, I'm a bit speechless at the moment, I must say. I had this lined up in Premiere Pro to release pending this voice introduction since about a week ago or thereabouts. I finally got around to do it, and I thought I'd just Google Tim Aimar to see what he'd been up to in the recent past. So today's date is Thursday the 16th of February, and I can see a note, well, not a note, it's a link on Google. He's dead, he's gone. Tim Aimar passed away. The band Pharaoh have posted to their Facebook page, 59 years of age. So I assume he's passed away on either February 14 or February 15. But I got to say I'm a bit speechless at the moment, so I'll do what I can in this introduction to relay as much information as I can about the conversation you tuned in to listen to, though. The chat occurred back in May or June of 2017. It was all down to my curiosity. I've been a huge fan of the Control Denied album, The Fragile Art of Existence, ever since it came out, as a matter of fact, back in 1999. I remember reading about it in Metal Maniacs, and the great Steve DiGiorgio was on it alongside of Chuch Schuldiner and this guy, Tim Aimar, the fellow with one of the greatest voices in the history of hard rock and heavy metal. You'll actually hear throughout this chat here that I mentioned to Tim that if I could borrow anybody's voice, because I sing too, I play in a band, it'd be his. So God bless Tim, God bless his family. I don't ever feel as though Tim Aimar has been given his due recognition as the fella that not only had the last word in Chuck Schuldiner's considerable legacy, but as a vocalist in his own right, forging the genre in his own way. He has an enormously powerful voice. If you're yet to hear the Control Denied album, go across to Spotify and have a bit of a listen to it. Before or after this, either way, just have a bit of a listen to it. I believe, and I didn't ask him this question, but long term he would have been the vocalist in all of Chuck's projects, whether that be Death or Control Denied or anything else that would have come out of the imagination of the great Chuck Schuldiner, pending personal disagreements. And you'll hear that it wasn't always plain sailing between Chuck and Tim. But this conversation, he's very frank, he's very real about what his struggles are, his recent struggles for the period of time that the conversation occurred. So 2017, he was driving rideshare, so Uber or any one of those other rideshare type businesses. He was doing that, and he was on Patreon or GoFundMe, one of them, asking for assistance because he was down to the seat of his pants, I think, meaning that life had been very, very difficult for him up to that moment. And he's another guy that I just couldn't fucking believe that the metal mastheads that are out there, being Decibel, Metal Injection, all of that shit, that they hadn't reached out to him to gain his insight. Now, that they might have. I might have just missed the article, but believe me, I've searched for it and I can't find anything. But he's just an enormous talent, and I'm very sad that he's lost to this earth anyway. May he continue to reign supreme in the next, that's for sure, with that almighty voice of his. So yeah, this chat is a huge deep dive into his thoughts. He shares his feelings on working with Chuck and the broader Death and Control Denied camp, what he's been up to with Pharaoh and Amargeddon and some of the other projects there. I think he talks about some teaching that he's been doing as well. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here, but this may well be the only long form. It's not an interview, I'm clear about that. It's a conversation that happened very early on in my podcasting career, but it's the only long form conversation out there featuring the fella. And I don't know what to say. Yeah, a bit lost, even though I've spoken a bit here. People who listen to the show are used to me doing this, so whatever. The conversation kicks off with Tim responding to my question about a comment that he made on Facebook that, ironically, life was looking like as though it was on the upward trajectory. So here he is, the late, great Tim Aimar.
Finally, yeah, it was pretty rough there.
Yeah.
Rough for a few years, and God, just when you think it can't get any worse, Like,
Yeah.
just has a way of biting me.
Yeah, no, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Yeah.
I had health issues, and trying to fix the health issues made things worse.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, mate, you'd be pleased to know, mate, there was a lot of concern in the metal community for you. So I'm glad to see that, mate. When you called, people responded.
I am so thankful for that, man. I tell you, you never know.
You're not wrong.
Just, I have these pain issues, and I guess you probably understand if you followed me on Facebook at all.
Sure, I do.
You know, I have chronic pain from injuries in the past, from doing all kinds of things. You know, some of it my own fault, some of it work accidents, but you know, these injuries have accumulated, and you know, I found myself in a position where, you know, the pain was keeping me from going to work.
Yep.
And I applied for a disability to at least have some income. Well, it took a year and a half, and then the attorneys finally decided to drop the case because I was working to keep the roof over my head. I don't have family handing me money to keep me, you know, to keep me a roof over my head and food in my belly. I got to do that myself.
Yep.
And I asked my attorney, you know, how many cases do you have a year like mine? And he said probably 600. The firm has maybe 600 cases a year. I said, well, what do the other 599 people do for a year or more while they're waiting for their hearings? And he said, to tell you the truth, I don't even know. So do you expect me to be homeless? Because, you know, I'm not going to survive that.
Yeah, it sort of puts you between a rock and a hard place, doesn't it?
Yeah, I really was.
Yep.
And fortunately, I had the moral support from people around me, and some people around me. Some people made it even worse, but they convinced me to put up a GoFundMe on Facebook.
Yeah, that was
and
a good idea.
Fans responded, and I couldn't believe how quickly they responded and how generous they were, because in a matter of a couple days, I had more than enough to start my Uber escapade here.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Yeah.
But I had enough. There was enough of a buffer that I could keep my rent paid until I got things rolling. And well, then after that, a month or two later, you know, things are still going with the Uber. But one of the things that happened, like back in October, my doctor had recommended some pain medication. I said, I don't want to take anything addictive, so absolutely no opiates or opioids either. No, I don't want them. I've watched too many people get hooked on them, and trying to get off them is even worse, you know. So he had me try what's called gabapentin, which is for the nerve damage that helps with the neuropathy in my hands. And, well, I'm the lucky guy. I mean, only a few people out of 1,000, I guess, get the symptoms that I got. I was suicidal.
Jesus, okay, yeah.
And it was helping the neuropathy a little bit. But, yeah, we can't live with suicidal. That's not going to be
not
productive.
at all. Yeah.
So
Jesus, yeah.
as I'm withdrawing from that, he put me on an antidepressant that made me sleep for about 20 hours a day. Well, nobody understands that you're on an antidepressant that makes you sleep 20 hours a day.
Yeah, they tend to do that for some people.
They're not going to let
things. Yeah.
Right, and that's what happened. I'm just that lucky guy that I get those side effects.
Yep.
And so I got off of those, you know, and it took maybe 2 months, 3 months from October until about the middle of May, to get on and off these drugs. Definitely not. I mean, they might, if whatever they're helping with the pain, they're not helping with my life at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I have asthma as well. The weather here is it's been pretty crazy. We didn't get spring until a few weeks ago, and everything just popped up. All the trees, all the flowers, everything popped up at once. And the pollen count here is just ridiculous. And here I'm driving a car, so I'm breathing even more pollen than I would normally just standing or, walking.
Yeah,
I'm breathing probably 100 times more pollen that way.
Are you in are you in Pittsburgh? Are you back in your hometown?
So my asthma put me in a hospital. What's that? Yeah, I'm back to my hometown of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, gotcha. Yep.
So I ended up in the hospital. I had an asthma attack so bad I thought I was actually going to die. I only live about a mile from the hospital, so I made it to the hospital and put me on the machine with the albuterol for maybe an hour. But I was breathing again in like 10, 15 minutes.
Yep.
And they sent me home with prednisone in a prescription for prednisone, a steroid to help heal the lesions. When you have an asthma attack, it puts lesions in lungs. And so I'm the lucky guy. The side effects of the prednisone are horrible. So I was suicidal from that and went into a bout of depression and anxiety that I've never experienced in my life so badly. And from the pain, I've had this pain problem for about 20 years. The pain that causes depression and anxiety. So it's a vicious cycle. The pain and the asthma are both causing anxiety and causing depression, and then they give me these drugs that make me suicidal. I can't win.
Jesus, yeah, mate. Well, it's a shame.
But luckily it was only for a week. It was only for a week, and I got off that, and I'm feeling a lot better.
Sounds like as though you've retained your sense of humour.
Yeah.
You try, yeah. All right,
I'm
mate.
I'm ready to start moving forward.
No, good on you, mate. No, good on you. Well, not that I speak for the metal community globally, but I certainly speak for myself and my family, mate. So from me and mine to yours, mate, wish you all the very best moving forward because you certainly deserve it. And
thank you.
I've got a ton of questions to ask you about your wonderful career, but, one of the, I don't know whether you call it an injustice or a tragedy, mate, but I've said this to many people, but you possess the voice that I personally would like to have, and I do a little bit of singing and playing the guitar, and I'll certainly play the guitar and play bass, and I do a little bit of singing, but your voice is one that is unique and it is standalone, and it is a voice I'd like to borrow, if you don't mind me saying. So it's a tragedy that you can't use it more and be on more metal releases, because I know there's a ton of people out there that would like to hear you on more releases than what we've got access to currently.
Yeah, I'm working on that. I mean, over the years, I've guested on a lot of records for people all over the place, and I would like to get into doing more of that. I have to get myself right now into a position where I have a studio. I've always had a studio that I live in. And, or one close by that I work in that, I can do these little projects on the side and my own projects. So I'm kind of stalled out right now as far as doing the recording of the vocals because, naturally I have to make noise to do that. And I'm in a hotel, so it's not conducive.
Yeah, gotcha.
But, I have a friend right up the street who has a recording studio. And the recording studio that I used to work at, it's now called Tonic. It's called Soundscape when I worked there. And I've been talking with Doug Casper, the owner there, and we've been friends for about 25 years. And we started our studio together, and it's really grown, and it's all modern and updated now. It's all digital, and we've been talking. I was out at his place last week. to talk about coming back to the studio, getting on the staff again.
Yeah, awesome.
So I'll have an outlet. I'll have that available to me soon.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm doing mastering for bands.
Okay.
There's a band in Costa Rica sending me their project to do mastering. So I've been working on a few things here or there, and I'm ready to start up Amargeddon again. You know about that?
Yes, of course. Yeah. That's one of Ben's own questions about it. Actually, tell us about what's going on there.
Well, I decided it was time. I'd spent all my life. I'm a big fan of guys like, the Beatles. They're totally self-contained. They were musicians who had a studio available to them, and their writing all the way, the whole process was done on their own. And then, then along came guys like Prince, who were producing themselves, and other bands started producing themselves. And my career has led me to that. I've been a musician professionally since I was about 15, playing in the clubs in Pittsburgh, and then graduating through ranks to where I am now. And I did the same with my engineering career and my teaching career. I was a voice teacher for about 14 years, and I worked in the recording studio altogether for about 20 years, I guess.
Yep.
And, it's time for all that to come together. So I decided that I would start my solo project, and we'll start off with covers. For the first record, to make it easy on everybody. I have friends all over the world that play guitar and drums and bass and keyboards. And I said, you know what? There's all these people that I've always wanted to jam with and never got a chance to. Well, we're in the digital age now. We can do that. Almost every musician out there has some way of recording themselves. So, I'll work up the tracks, I'll work up the drums, and then, whatever rhythm tracks, I'll work up the rhythm tracks and send them out. And guys like Jim Doffa was one of the first guys that I sent stuff out to. My best friend Mike Proctor does all the rhythm tracks with me. I work up the drums and the bass, and I have a couple of bass players. There's a whole list online of guys that will be involved. Now I can just send them tracks. They send me back their track, and I mix it. And it's
fair enough.
So I have no excuses. If it sucks, it's on me, But so far, it's not sucking at all. It's really been a great experience.
Good on you. And
there's a lot more coming. If we have 4 or 5 songs done, and the rest are coming slowly. Like I said, I just need the facilities.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Hey, I'm going to change gears for a second. Myself included, I think the vast majority of people that will be listening to our podcast here know you as the final voice in the significant body of work from Chuch Schuldiner. So the two of you became bandmates in Control Denied after Chuck had released the final album in the Death catalogue. Now, I've done a bit of preparation for our catch-up today, and I've read many of the interviews with you posted online, and you've already offered answers to the questions about the timeline and the episode of events that led to the two of you meeting. So for our chat, I thought I'd do something a bit different and ask you in your own words to share with the listeners about your relationship with Chuck and the special bond you shared.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I'm tired of answering the same questions all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine. I read a couple of interviews with you, and you do seem to get asked the same questions all the time. So I thought, I'm going to mix this one up a little bit.
Yeah, there's only so many ways you can reword something.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So you and Chuck, you were mates.
Yeah, we became good friends very quickly. It wasn't hard to be friends with Chuck. For some people, yeah, I guess it was. But he was a friendly person like myself, and a hippie, pretty laid back. We like all the same things: good food, family, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And we just hit it off. We hit it off, and there was a strange connection with some people. It's not like, it's not like we were constantly in communication. There was, when we first met, it was 96, 97, and I did the audition in 97, 3-song demo, and that's in that time we had talked enough on the phone to form a bond. When I got to Florida and met him and the guys in the band, it was like coming home. It felt like that. It wasn't like I was going to meet my new boss or try to fit in with this new band. It felt like I was coming home. And just from there, I mean, we lived in his home. He invited me to live in his home while we worked. And like I said, we like a lot of the same things. I'm a coffee lover. We get up in the morning and have a nice strong cup of coffee and a bagel with cream cheese, and call the radio station and order up some Southern rock. You wouldn't think that big bad metal guys were into Allman Brothers and Leonard Skinner. But that's what we lived. Those were our heroes too, And so we'd like listening to that stuff and howling along to it in the morning. That's a good way to wake up. And then we'd hit the studio. And a funny thing about my relationship with Chuck, and I have a few friends that it's the same way. You don't talk to, just because you don't talk to a friend every day doesn't mean that you're not their friend or they're not your friend.
Agreed.
And maybe, a few weeks, a month would go by, and I'd be like, you know what, it's time to give Chuck a call and touch base, see how he's doing and what's going on. And I go to pick up the phone, and it rings, and it's him.
Yeah, you had a good connection.
And that happened a few times. Yeah. So, we had our arguments, but not over anything serious. We had one argument.
What was that about?
A garbage can.
Well, if you're going to argue about anything, it's as good as it.
Yeah. Well, I was down there to rehearse with the band before we went into Morristown. We were rehearsing and finishing up the last demos because we still had a few songs to finish the demos on before we went and recorded them. And so I was staying at Chuck's, and I lost my track here. This truck pulled in and distracted me. The guy jumping out with an orange suit like he's a runaway convict or something.
You're saying you're staying with
Chuck?
Where
was I, Andrew?
You're saying you were staying with Chuck?
Yeah, I was staying with Chuck. We were working on the record together. I don't know what the point was now. That's what happens when you get old.
Yeah, I know the feeling. So you may have already alluded to this, but was there a moment when you were working with Chuck that you felt this whole thing just feels right?
Oh, immediately, yeah. As soon as we started working in his home studio back in '97. It was just, like I said, felt like coming home. It felt like we had worked for years together. He had a different approach to recording and producing things, and so did I. But when you put those two things together, man, I mean, it just flowed.
Yeah. And
the workflow was so easy. There was no butting heads over things. Okay, let's do that again. Let's try it a different way. And it just flew by. And we got our demos done. We were expecting for it to take a whole week, but 3 days, bam, we're done.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. And
the garbage can. I was talking about the garbage can. that was funny as hell, because as I'm down there and we're working out the last few demos and rehearsing with the band at night, he's paying me per diem, which is sort of an allowance.
Yep.
And so I noticed that when the guys came over, we're drinking a lot of beer. We've got the band and friends coming over, and we're drinking a lot of beer, and there's never enough garbage cans to hold all the bottles and cans. So I went to the store and I bought a garbage can and some garbage can liners for Chuck's plates, and he got mad. He says, "Don't be spending your money on me. I'll go buy myself a garbage can." And I said, "Wait a minute, wait. You don't tell me how to spend my money. If I want to buy my friend a garbage can, I will." That's the only thing we ever fought about. It wasn't even a fight.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. So it was a disagreement, but it sounded like two brothers fighting, if you don't mind me saying. That's the sort of thing brothers fight about.
Yeah, it was a very brotherly fight. Everything about the band was very brotherly.
Chuck was he was very family oriented. Do you have a relationship with his sister Beth Ann and with his mother Jane?
I had the good fortune of staying with them, and I was producing a guitar player, a female guitar player, and long story short, we ended up getting married. She wanted to put a band together, and she's a death metal guitar player, and big fan of Chuck's, and I said, well, you know what, the best place to do that is in Florida, and either Orlando or Tampa would be a good place to find killer metal players, bands, and I'm sure I can find a studio to plug into down there for her. So I talked with Beth Ann, and she said, just pack a bag, just get down here. Just get down here, I'll help you get things going. And so we got down there, and Beth Ann is a property manager, so she worked on a sweat equity agreement with me to be a caregiver, or caretaker, or whatever you call it, a groundskeeper at one of the homes that she was managing, one of the properties she was managing. So my wife rent-free in a beautiful home, and then I worked for her fiance was he had a construction company that did the rehabilitation on these luxury homes in Orlando. And so I worked with him for a while, and that was right after that we had the housing crunch. A lot of people lost a lot of money and weren't buying luxury homes at that time. So I got laid off, and I went to another company and did well there. But yeah, I had the Schuldiners to help me through that, and during that time, I got to be even more familiar with Chuck through his mom, and his sister. One of the things his mother always said is, "You even look like brothers." And you guys
yes, I can see that now. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The same, you act the same, you have the same ideas, the same demeanor, and it's like your brothers.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think Chuck would be doing if he were around in 2017?
What would he be doing?
Yes.
By now, I mean, he'd be what, 50, 51 by now?
Yeah, 50. Yeah, apparently
50,
this year he'd be 50. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 50, and he would be 50 now. And our plan was, last we spoke about it, our plan was that we'd be retired by now and racing our yachts. That's what we'd be doing.
Yes. That sounds like a good life, mate. Yeah.
That was our plan.
Yeah. Can you describe the music on what would have been the final installment of
Chuck's legacy, the album When Man and Machine Collide? Because I understand this is an album that will never be released.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, and I've tried to explain this over the years, what was happening with it, and no one seems to grasp really what happened there.
Yeah.
We got brought up. He wanted that album. First of all, he had to fight a battle to get us off of Nuclear Blast. He had to fight that battle while he was battling cancer.
Yes.
And then it got us on that Armageddon. And when he took a look at their assets and everything, he said, wait a minute, they don't even have the assets to back up this contract. That's fraud. We need to get out of this contract. And then he died. So he told me in the meantime, and the rest of the guys, don't finish the album till we get out of court. Whatever happens, whether I live or not, we're not going to finish this album until we get out of court with it. And so it took 10 years and Eric Reif finally stepped in and settled out of court. So we got at least got the rights back to it. But in the meanwhile, what happened was Chuck had been doing the best he could under the circumstances. So he got some things recorded at Morris Sound, and some things he took home, because it's expensive to do the experimenting with things in the studio. So he took rhythm tracks home and worked out solos on his hard disk recorder. And we thought those had been saved for posterity so that we could use them when the time came.
Yep.
But it's just the nature of the beast. The equipment that did record only does live for 5 years, and it's 10 years later, so that data was degraded and scrambled all over the hard drive.
Oh, yeah.
And Richard took it to a specialist and tried to recover as much data as we could, but it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle, and we don't know which pieces were meant to be kept and which were meant to be thrown away.
Yep.
So there's just too much damage to the data to even try to reassemble it and make a good product out of it.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
And the bottom line, Chuck was very tough on quality and things. So we're not going to put out a piece of crap just for the sake of putting it out.
Yep. Oh, well, that explains that then. Yeah, no, thanks for offering a summary on that one. Yeah. I'd read bits and pieces on the web, interviews with yourself, with Eric, even with Jim Morris, I think, has even offered a quote about it. But I think that puts a full stop on it all. It's unfortunate, but I think the way in which yourself and the other co-contributors honour Chuck's legacy is not releasing something that shouldn't be released, and that's certainly what you've got right there.
Shouldn't be. Yeah, it really shouldn't be, because the tracks that I have, they're demos, and we all understand what demos are. They're not meant to sound good. They don't represent the finished product very accurately.
Yeah, fair enough. And
you're just trying to get the ideas out. You're not worried about how it sounds. If there's a little imperfection here and there, who cares? Just get an idea out so you can hand it to the specialist who's going to play the bass or the drums and do the singing.
Yeah. And the fragile...
So the demos are nowhere near that quality.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Well, that's that then, I suppose, isn't it? I mean, it's a shame, but I really, again, I'm not speaking for the metal community, just for myself here, but I really appreciate that you guys haven't tried to release demos and dress them up as a final product, because it was never what Chuck was all about. And I mean, you can always really, and yourself as well, I've listened to the Pharaoh albums that I could get access to and the like. It's all about high quality output, giving the fans the best quality material at the time, and demos certainly aren't that.
Yeah. Everybody knows I'm a perfectionist, but
So the
somehow that. Go ahead.
You're right. I was just going to ask about the Fragile Art of Existence, because that's an album it still is ahead of its time, my opinion, and certainly in 1999 when it was released, it went over a lot of people's heads. So the older I get, it seems to sound better, and there are aspects of the arrangement of each song that only become apparent the more that I listen to it. So what's your take on the album now that it's almost at its 20th anniversary?
Wow, yeah. It's, I mean, when we first did it, we knew it was different, and we were going to catch a lot of criticism about it. There wasn't really much to compare it to because it was basically a death metal band with a power metal singer, but not singing in the power metal style per se.
Yes, agreed.
The style, the singing style was foreign to me, even, and it took me a while to catch on to the way it's kind of like Chuck took the death metal phrasing, the way he would phrase things as a death metal guitar player, singer, and he phrased it that way, but then I melodicized it, and so we came up with a unique approach to, like not a new genre, but then over the years we've heard other bands doing kind of that thing, a progressive death metal band with melodic vocals. We hear more and more of them every day.
Yeah, I think you mixed up that scream that you've got. Alluded to a lot of what was going to happen within the vocalists. I don't know whether they borrowed it from you per se, but the vocalists in the metalcore genre will have a clean vocal and then they have that scream or that shout. And you were doing that on that album, and I don't really recall a lot of it. I've been listening to metal for 25 years or so, and I don't really recall a lot of albums that sounded like that at all. There might be out there, but I certainly can't recall one right now as I'm talking to you. So it was a very innovative record.
The idea was to, when we talked about our influences, I'm influenced by thousands of musicians and singers. Everyone from Paul McCartney and Smokey Robinson to Rob Halford and all the classic metal icons,
Yep.
And the idea was to put all that in a bag and shake it up. And exactly.
Look, there was an interview that was an interview and a feature on the band that was published in Metal Maniacs magazine in that same year, 1999, and I wasn't aware. I've only recently become aware that you actually obtained the role of the frontman of Control Denied over the voice of metal himself, Rob Halford, and back in that Metal Maniacs magazine, they actually referred to you as the voice of metal, and I thought, God, that's a lofty title to give somebody. Then I heard you singing, and I thought, okay, now I get it.
That scares me. I have to live up to that.
Well, you do that. You do that well, but how do you feel that you obtained a role over the metal god himself?
I don't know. That's that's really an honor. And I've been working a long time, and it's never been my goal to be like the best singer in the world. It's just I work to everything I do is just to be a little bit better the next time I do it. I'll do myself the next time around. And it's always about the song. Is what I'm doing the song justice? Is it taking the song where it needs to go? That's what I'm thinking when I'm singing. Not is everybody going to like this, and are they going to make me the king of metal? No.
Yep.
But recently, a couple of years ago, I read a reader's poll where they put me in the top 100 of the greatest hard rock and heavy metal singers of all time. Number 98 on the list, but hey, I'm on the damn list.
Yeah, you're on the list, yeah. No,
that's a good feeling.
What was the publication that was organised through?
I don't know. I have a link to it that I post every once in a while. Hey guys, check this out. Remember to vote on me. Vote for me on the next readers polls. Because guys like me get forgotten when it comes to that, you know.
I agreed.
We're not, you know, I'm an underground metal singer. You're not necessarily going to turn on your radio and hear Tim Aymar singing on the radio. You're never going to, you know, unless you're in Europe. So there are stations in Europe and around the world that play heavy metal, and they play Control Denied and they play Pharaoh. But in the United States, I don't think you're ever going to hear it.
Yeah, no. Yeah. No.
So I'm an underground singer. I don't know how I got on the same list as like Ronnie James Dio.
I was going to say Dio.
Rob Halford
Well, I think it honours your wonderful legacy, and look, you do. As I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, you are the final voice in Chuck Schuldiner's often overwhelming legacy because, you know, Chuck in his own way, you know, this might sound a bit ethereal, but he's long gone. I mean, he's been gone well over 15 years now, but there are so many YouTube interviews and the like posted with him. He almost is still death metal's preeminent spokesperson and representative, and you hold the last word, if you like, in his legacy, as I say, mate. So I think there's also a lot of reverence for the work that you've done out there, and I know, you know, I don't talk to a lot of metal fans in Australia about Control Denied. I definitely spread the word and try to convert as many people as I can, but certainly globally, and as proof positive of the response to your GoFundMe campaign, there is a lot of affection out there toward you. So, mate, we can only hope that you do appear on more releases, whether it be through Armageddon or Pharaoh or whatever it might be.
That's good to know.
You know, so Death DTA Tours is the name of a tribute tour and a show dedicated to honouring the legacy of Chuck and Death's music. Has it ever been proposed for the show to perform Control Denied and The Fragile Art of Existence, just songs, or even the album in its entirety?
With the Death to All?
Yeah, on the Death to All tour. Yep.
That was a couple of years ago. Eric Greif asked me about doing it. We're just going to get everybody involved, and of course, Shannon had his own health problems.
Yes, I read.
Some heart issues. Yeah. And then, you know, Steve, I think Steve was on the tour, wasn't he?
Yes, he was, yeah. I think
Steve was on the tour. We talked about doing it, but I think the issue was who was going to play Chuck's parts. That's a.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the guitarists that have played with him could play what he plays, and come close to the way he played it. And the average ear is not going to notice a difference. But there's just something about standing in his shoes that I don't think anybody really wanted to touch that.
Agreed. Yeah,
but I ended up not doing it. We even talked about bringing Pharaoh on as an opening act to make it
yeah, that'd be fantastic, mate. Yeah,
more beneficial for that part of my career too.
Well, I think it gives fans an opportunity to see it.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, wonderful. And I was going to ask if there was a possibility that the show could even include performances from When Man and Machine Collide. If the stars ever aligned and one of Chuck's guitarists like Ralph Santola or Paul Masvidal was available, do you think he'd step up and do that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow. I mean, that would be totally awesome, and we could probably pull that off between Paul and James Murphy. I know he would love to do it.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And Ralph. I mean, it could be done, but it's a matter of us. We'd have to get together. We'd have to work on it, and of course, we wouldn't be sure it's exactly what Chuck had in mind.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about unfinished demos, and naturally he would have been there to coach us and get us to bring to fruition the original idea he had.
I'm going to name some co-contributors and bandmates to the Control Denied project, and if you're able to offer a quote about your experience working with them, that'd be great. So the first name that I had was Richard Christie.
Richard Christie, oh my God, what a guy. He was a lot of fun. Of course, he's a really funny guy, and all the guys in Control Denied have really good senses of humor. So, it was really fun working with him. I mean, he picks up on things so fast, which is one of the things that I really love about him. He'll come up with an idea, he'll work it out for 5 minutes, and okay, there you go. That's what it is. And he's not And although he is funny and silly and comical on one side, he's really serious about what he does on the drums.
Yeah, you can tell.
No
Yeah, he's one of the most inventive drummers of the modern era. There's no doubt about that.
I know his regimen, how strict he is with himself when it comes to practicing drums. So,
yeah,
he's a killer.
All right, that about sums up Richard, and the next person on my list is Steve DiGiorgio.
Steve is just an awesome guy. I didn't get to meet Steve at first because, of course, Scott was the original bass player.
Yes.
And when Steve came aboard, we had only talked online and on the telephone a little bit here and there. Welcome to the Brotherhood, basically, was the conversation. And can't wait to meet you. And then when we did get to meet, it was under sorry circumstances. Chuck had passed away, and I went down to the memorial, and that's where I met Steve. And,
yeah, gotcha. So obviously a lot of
there is a bond.
Oh, of course.
For the little bit of time that I met Steve, and for the reason that we got together, I guess there's a bond there that we'll have for life, I'm sure. And when he was involved with a project with an Italian producer and an Italian singer, and they were doing a rock opera, and they needed a singer to play the part of Lucifer. And I was the voice that came to mind, and Steve said, "Oh, I know the perfect Lucifer." So he thinks it.
Very appropriate. Yes.
So he does think of me.
Yeah, wonderful bass player too. Actually, I'm a bass player first and foremost, and I'm astounded at his playing on all of the death record, the death records he appeared on, and of course on the Control Denied album. It's phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
The next person is.
Yeah, and it's funny. You see Steve with his beard, and he's all metal, and you might get a different idea of what kind of personality he has. But really, he's like a lot of heavy metal and hard rock musicians that I know. They appear to be really tough guys, but when you meet them, they're really just nice, genuinely sincere people.
Yeah, that's certainly been my experience as well, meeting people, including your good self, mate. This chat's been fantastic. Yeah. So, the next person on my list is, we've already mentioned him, but rest in peace, Scott Glendenning.
Oh, my God, Scott. Scott and I hit it off pretty well as friends. We even, after the rehearsals and after the recording sessions, Scott and I went to the amusement park down there and had a blast. and we talked about all kind of things. When we were done recording our parts, or just and just hanging out at the studio, talk about all kinds of different things, and he would confide in me about his issues that he had with death. And I think the last real conversation I had with Scott was about issues that he had with death. And I said, look, this isn't death. This is control denied. You're going to really have to just, put all those issues behind you. That's not fair to me.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? You're right. So, he tried to forget about the issues that he had with death, and I had the same conversation with Chuck. Chuck said, "You're absolutely right. It's not fair at all that you walk into a situation that has problems from a band that this isn't anymore."
Yeah.
And
yeah, fair enough.
Unfortunately, we lost Scott before I had any chance to. Let me rephrase that. I did have plenty of chances, and I feel bad about it to this day. I did have plenty of chances because I moved back to Tampa. I was only maybe an hour or two away from Coast, and I could have gone to visit. I could have hung out with those guys. I didn't make the time to do it, and I really regret that.
Yeah. How do you think Scott is remembered by the metal community?
I don't know. I try to keep my business to myself, and I'm not worried about the metal community.
Yep.
Too much, I don't know how they feel.
Well, my own thoughts are he's a wonderfully forthright bass player. He's an excellent bass player, and I think his contribution to the live concert that Death released from LA is a wonderful testament to his playing. I think he and Steve are easily the two standout bass players that Chuck worked with through his tenure in Death.
I concur. He was a solid bass player, really.
Yeah, fair enough. And the next person is Shannon Ham.
I love Shannon. We call him Shandini. Well, he has a habit of disappearing on us.
Shandini, right?
Finally, he's one of those guys that, and kind of like me, I have the same thing in me when I get, I'll just get the urge to be alone. I need to be alone, so I'm going to walk off into the woods. I'm going to find a rock. I'm going to sit on it until I feel like I don't want to be alone anymore. And that's what he does.
Yeah, fair enough.
I finally got to do a gig and play with him live. I don't know how much you know about the Costa Rica gigs that I did.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about them. So
there's a tribute band. There's a Control tribute band. Actually, probably a few of them by now. And Death tribute bands, of course, down in Costa Rica. And I was mastering an album for a band down there, and they asked. After I started mastering their project, they said, well, I'll tell you the truth, we're a Control Denied tribute band, and we have an agenda here. And they said, we have our money saved up, and it would be the opportunity, the chance of a lifetime to have you come down here and sing and do a concert with us. And so I did. It was that easy, And if they're that into it, that it means that much to them that they would learn all the material and prepare for it and have a promoter work on his end of it. And, yeah, I'll do it. So I did the first one, And a few months later, I guess the first one was the anniversary of Chuck's passing. Or what? No, it was the anniversary of his birthday was the first one. And then on the anniversary of his passing, they asked me again to be on the show. And I said, well, I would. But I would also like to see if any of the other guys would like to be involved. So we tried to get Richard and Steve and Shannon to come down. Richard is really busy with the Howard Stern show, and I just didn't feel comfortable with playing that material without Chuck, and I understand. He was very close to Chuck, and it just stirs up emotions that you really don't want to be stirring up all the time. Yes. I get it. And Steve was busy doing something else, no problem. Would have loved to have him on it though, but Shannon did make it, and we got to share a hotel room and do some bonding, and talking, and but more importantly, we got to rehearse together and coach the other players on their parts, and finally we got to play on stage together that material.
Yeah, phenomenal. Yeah, I've seen there are videos posted.
I've always had of all the guys in. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. I was just going to say there are some videos posted to YouTube, I believe.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, the audio quality leaves much to be desired, but the videos there.
Yeah, no, it is indeed, yeah. Sorry, mate, what were you saying before?
I think of all the guys in the band, Shannon and I were the closest. I spent more time with Shannon than the other guys. So, we had a stronger bond than the rest of that we've seen.
Okay, yeah, a pretty good summary on that.
We've talked more on the phone. Yeah.
And the final name I've got on my list here is I should say, Jim Morris.
Jim's awesome. When I grow up, I want to be Jim Morris.
I think there's a bit of all of us that want to become Jim Morris when we grow up. There's no doubt about that. If you're into music and mastering and recording and the like, yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a engineer producer, I was totally impressed. I got to hear demos of things. He would pick me up. Jim would actually pick me up at the hotel in the morning to go do my vocal sessions. And on the way to the studio, he'd pop in a tape and said, "Here, listen to this. Tell me what you think. This is a band I'm working on. They're from wherever. I don't know, Nigeria or Switzerland or wherever. Just pick up a point on the phone." and I just listen and be like, wow. And that's a CDR. It's not mastered or anything. It's like, wow, pretty darn good. And so then I get to watch him in action while we're doing the vocal sessions, and I picked up a little bit of his production not a little. I picked up a lot of his production techniques as far as getting things done quickly. He would have me do 10 takes. Yes. Not do one take and say, okay, let's do another. He'd say, okay, we're going to do 10 takes of this. And we do 10. And we might do 10 more. He'd say, just change it up when you get to the second half of it or whatever, Yep.
And, that's it. And picking through the takes and comping them and everything. The techniques that he used it made sense to me. So, when I'm producing someone else or I'm working on something on my own, there's Jim Morris in
All right. No, that's a very good summary. And look, is there any aspect of your career to date that you don't feel has been given adequate coverage?
Is what?
Do you think there's an aspect of your career to date, whether it be with Pharaoh, Armageddon, even Control Denied, that has been given fair coverage or adequate coverage?
No, I don't think there's anything lacking.
Oh, fair enough. All right.
No, I just I do wish I was more active right now.
Well, I certainly...
And that is about change.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that from a listener's perspective as well. Actually, just before I forget, sorry, what did you think of the video that was done for sorry, I can't remember, I remember the name of the song any other time of the day, but of course it escapes me right now. Breaking the Broken, of course. What did you think of the video done for Breaking the Broken from The Fragile Art of Existence?
I love it.
Yeah, likewise. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's the director's idea of what's going on in that song, and that's kind of the way Chuck wrote songs. Is he was very much anti-MTV,
Yes.
and even though he had a few good videos on MTV,
Yep.
He understood that music as an art is not to be taken literally. You're supposed to make that story up in your head and make those pictures in your own mind. So a lot of people didn't get the theme of it, and they didn't understand. Well, it does look like a cheesy old B movie, for a reason. It wasn't by accident,
Yeah,
but I like it.
So there were images of pages or like a diary or a notebook that had some words and some drawings and like doodles, if you like. Was that meant to represent Chuck's thoughts, how he wrote them down, and his images as he put them to paper?
Yeah, I believe a lot of them were literally he had what he called the book of death, where he kept his scratch ideas of everything.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's what we're looking at in the video, or a representation of it.
Yeah.
I know he did keep a book of death.
I particularly like...
I keep a book of doom.
Hey, don't we all? Yeah. I particularly like in that video clip, though, how the framed images from the album sleeve periodically appear. I think that really... to use the expression, it really frames the members of Control Denied very nicely, because that's really the last release we're ever going to see from Control Denied, as far as we can really all see, isn't it? Yeah, unless somebody does another video. All right, mate, we're almost near the...
I would like to see more of that. I would like to see more of that. To have the fans and filmmakers out there taking interest in Control Denied and maybe even Pharaoh, and do their own interpretation of the videos.
Well,
or of the music.
Well, yeah.
And do videos for us.
I couldn't agree more, and I'll just share my own experience quickly. I was in a band called Cross Trigger, a local band here, and look, we released an EP, and we reached out to a bloke who was doing his like an assignment for university or college, and asked him if he was in audio visual, and asked him if he wanted to do a video for us, and of course he did it. It can be fairly straightforward to get these things done, so it's kind of like two birds with one stone scenario.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm almost at the end, so I've got 3 questions, and look, I do interview a lot of musicians and artists, and I'd love it if you could humour me here and play along. Your answers could be as not safe for work as you like, because we're an R-rated program, let's put it that way. Tim Aymar, choose 3 words to describe yourself.
Passionate, sincere, humble.
Nice. Passionate, sincere, humble. That sounds about right. Next question. If you could go back to when you were 18 and give yourself some advice, what would you say?
Keep your day job.
That was quick. Yeah, there's a lot of life experience coming out in that statement, I can sense. All right, and my final question is, what 5 guests, living or dead, would you invite to dinner?
Wow, okay. I want Chuck and Scott.
Yep.
Let's see. I miss my brother Danny terribly.
Danny?
I think he would get along with those guys as well. Yeah, my brother Danny. Bring my mom along.
Wonderful, yep.
And let's bring Ronnie James Dio into the picture too.
Nice.
That would make it an interesting party.
Yeah. No, it's a very nice and a very thoughtful list, mate. That one right there. That's what that is.
Those are the people that I really looked up to.
So that's it. The last word, Tim Aymar. God bless. Wow. He's no longer with us. I was always hoping that there would be some sort of a reformation of the original Control Denied members in that death to all thing that goes around, because all except for Chuck, they were still with us up until this moment in time. Tim Aimar, he's in the next world. Joined Chuck and many other greats. So that conversation happened back in May or June of 2017, very early on in my podcasting career. I'd yet to really master the art of the conversation, but I don't think it's too bad. I certainly think it's a fitting tribute to the great man. So if you like that chat, there are plenty more just like it over at scarsandguitars.com. If you like Cradle of Filth, I've conducted plenty of interviews with all of the important people that were a part of the band throughout their 90s epoch. And if you like listening to the show, maybe you like reading, because I have written a book, Scars and Guitars Volume 1, Conversations from the World of Heavy Metal and Beyond. Tim Aimar does feature amongst those pages. So click on the link in the banner of the website there. You'll be taken to a marketplace of your choice and you can download a sample. If you do complete the purchase, hit me up, because I want to thank you personally, and there's some more information to come about the book. But before I let you go, thanks very much for listening to this one. Appreciate it. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. Until next time, it's a very goodbye for now.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Coal Chamber and why the band will never return.
You know, if you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words there. Sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Coal Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, you know, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not gonna be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuch Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
My name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.